Today we're tackling, well, arguably the most stressful light on your dashboard. You know the one, that little orange beacon of doom, the check engine light?
Ah, yes, the cause of much anxiety.
Exactly. And you know that feeling, right? It pops on and boom, your mind goes straight to, I don't know, catastrophic engine failure, huge repair bills.
Thousands of dollars, yeah.
Our mission today, though, is simple. We are diving deep into your car's brain, its diagnostic system. We want to figure out why that light often seems to, well, lie, why it gets triggered by things that aren't really emergencies, and how you can swap that panic for some proactive knowledge.
Right. Let's jump right into it then.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to ShopTalk, the podcast where auto repair pros get real insights to grow smarter, run smoother, and boost profits.
It's really crucial knowledge to have these days. I mean, a modern car isn't just mechanical anymore, is it? It's basically a rolling computer network.
100 computers you mentioned.
Almost, yeah. Loads of small computers, sensors everywhere, all constantly running rapid self-checks. They're comparing how the car is running against how the factory expects it to run.
Okay, so there's a central command monitoring all this. What's the mothership computer called? The one in charge of that light?
Right, that's the engine control module, the ECM. You might also hear it called the ECU, engine control unit, or maybe PCM, powertrain control module. But functionally, yeah, it's the main brain. It manages everything from, like, ignition timing to checking emissions. When that light comes on, it's the ECM saying, hey, something failed one of my self-tests. Gotcha. And that brings us straight to the two really critical states you have to recognize immediately when you see that light. First, if the light is just steady, solid orange, it means a fault happened, like a diagnosis is needed, at your earliest convenience. But unless you notice the car driving really badly, you can usually get where you're going or head to the shop.
Okay, steady as a heads up, but what if that light is flashing, blinking at me?
That's totally different. That's the car basically screaming for help. A flashing light means a serious condition is happening right now. Usually it indicates a severe ongoing misfire.
Misfire meaning unburnt fuel.
Exactly. Uncombusted fuel getting dumped into the exhaust system, and that stuff superheats and just destroys your catalytic converter, like really fast.
Wow.
Yeah, the source material couldn't be clearer on this. If that light is blinking, you need to pull over safely immediately and call for a tow. Don't keep driving. You will cause expensive catastrophic damage if you do.
Okay, that is crystal clear. Flashing light equals stop now.
Let's unpack the steady light situations then, and maybe start with the good news, the common false alarms. Our sources were, completely unanimous on the single most common, simplest reason for that light to come on. And it's something you might have done yourself last time you got gas.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We are talking about the humble gas cap.
Just the cap.
Just the cap. People often forget it's not just a lid. It's actually a key part of your evaporative emission control system, or EVAP IT system. If that cap is loose, or maybe it's cracked, or heaven forbid missing altogether, the whole system can't hold pressure like it's supposed to. And the computer, the ECM, it doesn't know you just forgot to click it tight, right? It just sees a massive leak in this emission system.
Precisely. It gets this reading, interprets it as a major emissions fault because it's designed to prevent fuel vapors escaping. So if you pull the codes and see something in the 0400 range, especially 0455 or 0442, those are classic EVIP system codes. The very first thing, a mechanical check, and the first thing you should check is always that gas cap.
Right. So actionable advice time. Let's say the light comes on right after I filled up. I checked the cap, tighten it down properly till it clicks, but the light's still on. How long do I give it before I assume the cap wasn't the problem after all?
That's a really good question, actually, because the light doesn't usually switch off the second you tighten the cap. The ECM needs to run several successful self-diagnostic cycles first. It has to confirm, over time that the leak is genuinely gone. This often takes, say, 1 or 2 days of normal driving, maybe 3.
3 days, okay.
Yeah, if the light is still stubbornly on after about 3 days of regular use, then okay, you probably know the problem is deeper than just the gas cap.
Good to know. Excellent distinction. Okay, moving beyond simple physical things like caps. What about electrical gremlins? Power fluctuations fooling the computer?
Yeah, it's fascinating how sensitive modern car electronics are, especially to voltage. Take an aging battery, for instance. It might still have enough juice to crank the engine over, right? but it could be
Eh.
struggling to provide that perfectly stable voltage needed by all the computers, including the ECM itself. Yeah. If the computer's power supply is kind of jittery, that can absolutely cause false error codes to pop up.
So if I'm noticing other signs, like maybe my headlights dim a little when I hit the brakes, or the engine sounds a bit sluggish when starting, that weak battery could actually be confusing the check engine light system.
Absolutely. A voltage dip during startup or underload can easily trigger weird, unrelated codes. Sometimes just replacing a battery that's on its way out clears up those persistent mystery CELs. And beyond the battery, sometimes you just get these, temporary electrical glitches, like a sensor having a momentary hiccup, or maybe some electrical noise on a circuit for a split second.
Ah, like the car just sneezing, basically.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. It's like the system got startled for a moment. So if the light comes on, but then maybe a few hours later, or the next day, it just turns itself off and stays off. It was almost certainly just one of those fleeting glitches. Nothing to worry about.
And if it stays on, but I still suspect it was just temporary, is there a reset trick?
There is, yes. The classic tech support solution really, turn it off and on again. You can carefully disconnect the car's battery, leave it disconnected for maybe 10 minutes or so, then reconnect it. This forces the ECM to do a hard reset, clearing out its temporary memory, including those transient glitch codes. Just be aware you might lose radio presets and stuff like that.
Right, the old battery disconnect trick. Okay, so we've covered internal sensitivities. What about external triggers, or even user error? Things that aren't really the car's fault, but flip the light on anyway.
Oh yeah, Mother Nature definitely plays a role sometimes. Think about extreme weather shifts. Really scorching summer heat or deep freezing cold, or even just super high humidity. These conditions can temporarily throw off certain sensors,
Which ones?
especially ones monitoring air density or temperature, like the mass airflow sensor,
Yeah.
the MAF. It might send readings that are technically outside the normal expected range. Just because the air itself is, say, 110 degrees and sticky, so the ECM flags it. But often the issue just resolves itself once the weather goes back to normal.
Interesting. And what about for people who like to modify their cars? Yeah, adding aftermarket parts?
Ah yes, that can definitely trigger the light because the ECM, remember, is calibrated very precisely for the original factory components, right? So let's say you install Performance Cold Air Intake System. It flows more air, right? Yeah. Well, that change in airflow velocity might slightly confuse that very sensitive MAF sensor we just talked about. It reports an error reading the ECM wasn't expecting for that engine speed and throttle position. The computer sees this deviation, flags it as a fault, maybe an air-fuel ratio code, even if the engine is actually running perfectly fine with the new part.
So it might need a tune-up or calibration.
Sometimes, yeah. These kinds of modifications might require professional recalibration, or what's called a custom tune, to basically tell the computer, hey, this new airflow reading is okay now.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, let's shift gears to contamination. The really immediate, sometimes self-inflicted
Well,
triggers.
the absolute worst-case scenario here is obviously putting the wrong fuel in the tank.
Oh boy, diesel in a gasoline car, or vice versa.
Yeah, that will cause immediate severe problems, and the CEL will light up instantly. If you ever realize you've done this, the absolute key is: do not start the engine. Don't even turn the key to the on position if you can help it. Just call a tow truck right away. They need to drain and flush the entire fuel system before that wrong fuel gets circulated.
Okay, good warning. But even just regular gasoline can cause issues if it's, well, bad gas, right? Contaminated fuel.
Absolutely. Fuel can get contaminated with water, sometimes dirt or even rust particles from old storage tanks. That bad gas won't burn cleanly. It'll lead to rough idling, hesitation, misfires, all things that will definitely trigger the check engine light.
And fuel additives. I see those advertised all the time.
Right. And many are fine, but you have to be a bit careful. While they're meant to clean injectors or whatever, some contain pretty strong solvents, and occasionally these solvents can temporarily interfere with sensitive components, especially oxygen sensors in the exhaust. They might cause faulty readings, and yep, trigger false CEL until that additive works its way through the system and burns off.
One more potential liar before we get into the codes themselves. Sometimes the tool is the problem, the scanner.
That's a really important point, yes. The diagnostic tool itself, the OBD2 scanner that mechanics plug in, it can be faulty too.
Like diagnosing with a broken thermometer.
Exactly. A faulty scanner might misread the codes, report incorrect DTCs, or even fail to communicate properly. Imagine a mechanic chasing a 0300 multiple misfire code because the scanner said so, but the real issue, or the scanner itself, is faulty. They could end up replacing perfectly good spark plugs, coils, you name it.
So using a reliable, well-maintained scanner is key.
Absolutely critical for accurate diagnosis.
Okay. This is where knowledge really becomes power, isn't it? The light at the
Yeah.
CEL just tells us something is wrong, but the diagnostic trouble code, the DTC, that's the computer's actual message telling the mechanic where it thinks the fault is.
That's right. The DTC is accessed through that standard port, the OBD2 port usually under the dashboard, and it's always a 5-character alphanumeric code. The first letter is super important. It tells you the system category. P is for powertrain, engine, transmission, emissions. That's the most common one you'll see. Okay, P for powertrain. Then B is for body systems like airbags, power seats, lights. C is for chassis, think ABS brakes, traction control, steering. And U is for network communications, meaning issues between the car's various computer modules.
And I heard the second character matters too. Tells you if it's a generic code or specific to my car's make.
Correct. If that second digit is a 0 ward, it's a generic SAE code, meaning it's the same definition across all vehicle brands. Makes things a bit easier. If it's a 1 though, or sometimes a 2 or 3, it's an enhanced or manufacturer-specific code. So a Ponex XX code on a Ford might mean something different than on a Toyota.
But there's a catch, right? The code doesn't always pinpoint the exact broken part.
That's the crucial caveat, yeah. The code often identifies the circuit that failed its test or the symptom the computer detected, not necessarily the root cause component. It still requires proper troubleshooting.
Okay, let's put some common codes under the microscope then. Which big categories of failures pop up most frequently with that steady CEL?
Well, a really common group are the air-fuel ratio issues. These are typically codes from 0171 through 0175. Fundamentally, these codes are about how the engine is breathing, the mixture of air and fuel it's getting.
Lean or rich,
Exactly.
right?
0171 and 0174 mean the system is running too lean, too much air compared to the fuel being injected. 0172 and 0175 mean the opposite. The system is running too rich, too much fuel, or not enough air getting in.
Okay, let's take P0171 running lean. What's a classic, maybe slightly tricky cause for that?
The classic tricky one is often a vacuum leak. Imagine a small crack in the vacuum hose somewhere after the air filter, maybe near the intake manifold. That leak sucks in extra air that the engine's main air sensor, the MAF sensor, never measured. It's unmetered air, so the ECM doesn't know about this extra air. It keeps injecting the amount of fuel it thinks is right for the air it did measure, but now, oops, the overall mixture has too much air. It runs lean, flags the 0171.
And running rich could be the opposite, like a clogged air filter starving it of air.
Precisely. If the air filter's totally plugged, the engine can't suck in enough air. The mixture becomes too fuel-heavy, and you might get a P0172 or P0175. Could also be leaky fuel injectors, other things too.
Okay, then you have the codes everyone kinda dreads, because you can often feel the car acting up when they happen. Misfires, the P0300 series.
Yes, misfires are serious business, and they happen when one of the 4 essential ingredients for combustion in a cylinder is missing or weak. You need fuel, you need air, you need compression, and you need ignition or spark.
The 4 pillars?
Exactly. If any one of those is off, the cylinder misfires. 0300 is the general code, meaning multiple random cylinders are misfiring. If you get a specific code like 0301, that means cylinder number 1 is the culprit. 0302 is cylinder 2, 0304 is cylinder 4, and so on. It tells you which cylinder has the problem.
What usually causes one of those 4 things to fail? Maintenance stuff.
Often yes. Very common causes are things like old fouled spark plugs that just can't create a strong enough spark anymore, or maybe a failing ignition coil that sits on top of the spark plug. Or it could be on the fuel side, maybe a fuel injector is clogged and not spraying properly. Less common but possible are mechanical issues like low compression.
And lastly, the really expensive codes people fear, 0420 and P0430.
Yes, those point directly at the catalytic converter. Specifically, they mean the catalyst system efficiency is below threshold. In plain English, the converter isn't doing its job effectively anymore. It's not breaking down the harmful pollutants in the exhaust gases like it should.
And that's a pricey fix.
It really is, which is exactly why we keep hammering home that point about the flashing light. A severe misfire dumping raw fuel will cook that converter very quickly, leading directly to these P042V or P043 codes down the line.
Okay, this is all incredibly useful. It brings us to the final, really crucial piece. How does a good mechanic actually use all this info? How do they separate the real problems from the temporary glitches or false alarms? Because even though we've talked a lot about false alarms, we need to stress, again, serious symptoms like engine overheating, really rough idling, loss of power, or that flashing light. Those demand immediate attention. Those are usually the real deal, right?
Absolutely. Those are times when the light is almost certainly telling the truth about a significant problem. And we know other common mechanical failures often trigger a legitimate CEL too. Things like really worn spark plugs causing consistent misfires, severely clogged air filter restricting airflow, a noticeable vacuum leak making a hissing sound, or even a failed thermostat that's stuck open or closed.
Right, a stuck thermostat messes with engine temperature.
Exactly, preventing it from reaching or maintaining its proper operating temperature, which the ECM tracks closely.
So, when a good technician gets a car with a CEL, especially if the driver says it seems to be running fine otherwise, what's the process to avoid jumping to expensive conclusions based on a temporary glitch? What's the first thing they look at besides just the code itself?
The absolutely crucial first step beyond just reading the code is looking at the freeze frame data. This is gold.
Freeze frame. What's that?
When the ECM detects a fault and decides to turn on the check engine light, it doesn't just store the P code. It also instantly takes a snapshot, a freeze frame of various sensor readings and operating conditions at the exact moment the fault occurred.
Like taking a picture of the scene. What kind of data does it capture?
It captures key
Okay.
parameters, things like engine coolant temperature, engine RPM, vehicle speed, how far the throttle pedal was pressed, fuel trim values which relate to that air-fuel mixture, maybe intake air temperature, engine load calculation.
Wow. Okay. And how does that help tell if it's a real problem or just a blip?
It provides vital context. Think of it as circumstantial evidence. Let's say the code is for a lean condition, 0171. If the freeze frame shows the fault happened when the engine was dead cold, idling at maybe 1,500 RPM right after startup on a freezing morning, that might suggest, yeah, maybe it was just a temporary sensor glitch or odd reading during warm-up. Very common time for voltage fluctuations too. But if that same P0171 code was set when the engine was fully warmed up, cruising at 70 miles per hour on the highway under load, that points much more strongly towards a genuine persistent fault like that vacuum leak we discussed. That needs real mechanical investigation.
So the context is everything. The freeze frame tells the story behind the code. What's the next step after analyzing that?
Standard procedure, especially if freeze frame suggests it might have been transient, is to clear the code and then retest. Drive the car under similar conditions if possible. This is non-negotiable for weeding out those one-off glitches. If the car runs fine for a day or two and the code immediately comes back, now we know the fault is solid. It's repeatable.
Makes sense. What else?
Then they'll do a thorough visual inspection. Check all the wiring, harnesses, and connectors related to the code circuit. Look closely for any signs of damage, corrosion from moisture getting in, wires chafed or broken, even evidence of rodents chewing on things, believe it or not.
Critters causing check engine lights?
Oh, it happens more than you'd think. They love the warmth of engine bays and sometimes chew on tasty wire insulation.
Okay, so check the context, clear and retest inspect wiring. Do they still start with the cheap stuff first?
A good tech absolutely does. Always rule out the simple, low-cost possibilities before diving into expensive parts. Check that gas cap again, check fluid levels, double-check the battery's health and connections, and one final step, especially for weird or recurring issues. Check for technical service bulletins or TSBs from the vehicle manufacturer.
Software updates for the car's computer.
Exactly. Remember, the ECM is a computer running software. Sometimes the manufacturer identifies a bug in that software that might cause it to be overly sensitive to a particular sensor reading or misinterpret data under certain conditions. They'll issue a TSB with a software update, a reflash that corrects logic. A dealership or well-equipped independent shop can perform these updates.
So it could just need a software patch like my phone does sometimes.
Pretty much. The whole toll of this methodical approach is to accurately diagnose the real issue and build trust, Avoid just throwing parts at the problem. The old parts canon approach.
Okay, this has been incredibly illuminating. To kind of wrap up our deep dive then, you, the listener, now understand the language the ECM is speaking. You know the difference between maybe a minor electrical hiccup and a genuine mechanical threat. That check engine light is a vital tool, but yeah, it's not infallible.
Definitely. And remember, those most common lies are simple fixes. Always check the gas cap first. Consider if your battery might be getting weak. And don't panic if the light comes on and then goes off by itself, likely just a temporary glitch. Use that freeze frame J to context if you can get it read.
And never ever ignore that flashing light.
Absolutely not. Flashing light means pull over safely right now. And maybe here's a final thought, a way to filter things mentally, especially for those P030X misfire codes, which are so common. We talked about the 4 essential conditions for combustion: fuel, air, compression, and spark. So next time that light comes on and maybe you suspect a misfire, try not to immediately jump to what part broke. Instead, ask yourself, which one of those 4 fundamental elements might be missing or weak in that cylinder? Is it likely a spark issue, plugs, or coils? Is it an air issue, vacuum leak maybe? Could it be a fuel delivery problem, injector, or less commonly, a compression problem? Thinking about it through those 4 pillars can really help narrow down the possibilities and guide the diagnosis. Drive safe out there and keep that knowledge rolling.
Thanks for tuning in to Shop Talk by ShopOfficer. If you found this episode helpful, share it with another mechanic or shop owner and follow for more real-world advice. Ready to work smarter? Try ShopOfficer, the all-in-one shop management platform with built-in labor guides, ALLDATA and Mitchell1. Find labor times, build accurate estimates, and manage your entire shop from one place. Visit shopofficer.com to get started for free. Until next time, keep wrenching smarter.
1, 2,